when they have questions, by the state, by the institutions, and even the departments on how you approach patient care. Some of those things we probably do have here, but they're not, emphasized on, or they're not enforced. That's one end. The other prong is the conditions by which people practice here. I mean, over there, conditions are well established. I mean, they make the doctors and those in the healthcare facility practice medicine the way they ought to, and they provide them with all the facilities and all the tools and the whole works that they need to do that. But here it's a big issue. Over the course of years, I've come from time to time giving lectures and talks, and I've visited emergency rooms in tertiary institutions here and even the federal medical centers and in private centers. We find out that the conditions where the doctors practice is a big issue, and those are things we need to address. I mean, I remember talking to a young lady the other day while I was at one of the federal medical centers. A friend of mine had fell off a bike and had a concussion. I was unconscious. The approach was not what I would do. The doctors I met, they were very, receptive to learning from where 24 hours a day. So you know yourself more than anybody else will. So you need to know what and how you feel, and how your body, if it changes, you need to ask questions. And then be bold. Ask the doctors questions. And that's one. But then again, you have to find a way to ask. If you ask in a polite and decent way, obviously, somebody will listen to you. Then, with the healthcare, aspect of it, the hospitals ought to have set principles, also guidelines, that which doctors ought to learn to practice, and then reinforce these guidelines. Not just reinforcing them, but also creating avenues where doctors are trained even better with this. Because, with everybody else, you get one, if I say one thing one time, you get it. But not every one of us will get it at the same time. So you may have to repeat it, you may have to identify those who don't understand it, and those who have a difficulty understanding it, and then creating avenues for them to learn and to understand it even better. And that should go along everybody in the healthcare system, from the nurses to the doctors to even the family, the techs who take the blood, and the people in the labs. We all have a stake in this. Healthcare is an issue that
everybody has a stake. But speaking specifically now, you Nigerians who are up there are called diasporans. Right. What can you do? Because you are a big force, right, and you are even experts in your own right. What can you do? You have identified some of these challenges here, and you're a Nigerian. What do you think you can do to help maybe the medical institutions, the health centers, or is it the universities, or what?
Well, granted, you say we're a huge force. Yes, we are a huge force. There are over about 38,000 doctors practicing abroad.
Nigerians?
Yes, Nigerians alone. And we are not just doctors. As a matter of fact, I gave statistics recently. There are about 2.1 million Africans in the United States, of which Nigerians form over 46%. This currently about 440,000 of us in the United States alone. So it's a huge force. And everybody who I talk to, every diasporan, doctors or non-doctors, and then we talk about doctors, we forget others too. The pharmacists, there are lab technicians, there are physical therapists, there are physiologists, there are psychiatrists, and everybody else. Each and every one of those individuals have a passion, wanting to come back, to give back to the society here. But one of the big issues that they complain about is the avenue, who to trust, how do we get it done? But I also tell people this: if you want to get,
you have done that through maybe NGOs that are based here in Nigeria.
Yes, but then the issue of trust is there.
You are not trusting individual now; you are trusting the NGO.
Well, even in the NGOs too, there are issues of trust.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm just going to come in here and say
that's Moji's tough.
Yes.
She is in that NGO.
Yes, I know. So,
yeah.
I mean, when you're talking,
Dr. Aluya does not trust you.
No. couldn't have been talking about me. He couldn't have been talking about me because I'm in the process of advancing the media as a strategic tool for contributing to healthcare delivery system.
Right.
And you've just made some mention to that it's, I think that is an integral part of it. Information is powerful, is knowledge, and when you have information you can as well use, I mean, looking after yourself starts from, you know, what you talk about yourself. But I'm worried, you know, particularly about diasporans coming back home to give and to contribute. It's usually an intervention.
Right.
It does not last.
Right.
Take for example, take for example, you come in, you have surgery. Eye surgery is very one of the commonest that you have around.
Right.
How do you do with follow-ups?
Right.
Complications might arise. How do you do with follow-ups? So there's need for diasporans to trust, bring back knowledge, so that you are not just coming to do an intervention and leave. And what happened to the complications? And I have followed up on some complications that have arisen as a result of our diasporans coming, that I'm happy about that they do come, but that because they have to go back to their lives, the gap still exists. So how do we close this gap?
You see, by coming to Nigeria at this time, it's actually on a fact-finding, mission. If you have to, nothing good comes easy. You have to put your hands, roll up your sleeves, and put your hands in the dirt to get things done. One of the biggest concerns is, like you said, rightly said, follow-up and sustaining and propagating the things that, the wishes and the values that people have. It's something I've thought about over the course of the years. I've done medical missions in the US. I do medical missions in Jamaica. And there's a structure that the Jamaicans have set, and the Caribbeans. Probably because they're so close to the United States, and it's easy for them to go back and forth. And I've done those things with them. I've seen how they do their things, and I want to be able to translate that here. So I recently met with, the Honorable,
Minister of Health?
No, Abike Dapiri, who is, championing the diaspora, cause and all that. I mean, she's an amazing and a wonderful, receptive person. And I was really impressed, when I, tried to give within, even if it's within a short time, my dreams and ideas of what we need to bring. So my approach is this. First, we need to set up a constructive, firm structure of how the diasporans can come in and give back to Nigeria, in the sense that it has to be involved with all the ministries, the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Ministry of Health, where there ought to be a body that links and coordinates and collaborates this work with the people in diaspora, and then form a body also in diaspora. So even if it's NIDO or AMPA, which is the American, Association of Physicians, so that there will be body formed there. I've talked to, some of the NIDO executives and, the immediate past presidents, as well as AMPA. I'm involved in AMPA, and I'm also involved, I recently became the president-elect of New Jersey Medical Association. So it's a platform that I really want to use. There's so much to do. We can translate that into, our consciousness here. So forming a firm, definite structure where people can account for, the things that they do. One, a body that would collaborate and coordinate in every one of these things that's done. First, granted, people can come here to Nigeria to give effect, to do, but how do we know who they are or where they're even coming from? What's their expertise? If they're experts in those, fields, are they qualified to do the things they're actually doing? We don't know that, but we ought to know those things, because I don't want anybody who feel he's from diaspora or whatever come give here, medication to people, my people back home, when I don't know if they're really doing what they ought to be doing. And even when they come, what they're doing, is it applicable to national standards or international standards? Are those the things that we really want or need? That's one. The medications that come in, are they medications that are verified? Are they up to date? So those are things we ought to,
look out for.
To look out for as well.
So what was Honorable Abike Dabiri's? You said she was receptive, but what else did she say she was going to do? Did she tell you she was going to maybe hook you up with the Minister of Health, for example, or the other strata of health institutions?
Even before I met with them, there's AMPA has met with her before.
What is AMPA?
AMPA is the American Medical Association of Physicians in America. They're a collection of body of Nigerians doctors, not just doctors but physicians, dentists and psychiatrists in the United States. So they've met and they're trying to form this same structure. But, like with everything else, nothing is being done. But I have it as a passion. It's my driving force. Because I think it's time we get these things done. Because there's so much head needs. And there's so much that can be done. That the system, that the people in diaspora can contribute to the system. And help, like you said, bridge the gap.
Yeah, so, Dr. Alua, let's quickly now veer into the other specifics. Sugar, diabetes, diabetes mellitus. These are, I understand, are different strands or kinds of diabetes disease that we have, and I understand it is almost becoming an epidemic. How bad is the situation, and what can people like you do? It's
very bad. I mean, if in 2016 the WHO and Center for Disease Control in America came to realization that diabetes is an epidemic. I mean, I've been sounding the alarm for the last 10 years in America because I see what it does to the black community. We, as a race, I tell people this, diabetes is new to us. In fact, studies have shown that in the 80s, there were just about 800,000 people who were known to have diabetes in Africa. But as we speak, it's about 19 million, and it's counting. So the incidence rate or the prevalence rate has quadrupled from the 80s to now. It's a big issue. If in America, where they have all the facilities and everything else, that the money and all that and all, they spend $440 billion on diabetes and diabetes-related disease. How much do we have in our entire healthcare system? As a matter of fact, less diabetes. So if it's an epidemic for them, to us here, it's a catastrophe. And it's something that we need to pay attention to. And that's one of the big issues and a passion of mine. And I think it's the alarm bell should be ringing in everybody's head. Because in the United States, 2015 alone, there were like 29 million people with diabetes, with 88 million with pre-diabetes. That's another portion again that we'll talk about. But in 2017, the reports for 2018 is not out. They're already from 29 to 33 million already. So 1 in 4 people in diabetes in America has pre-diabetes. So do we have those statistics here? We don't. And how many people do we have? We know in Nigeria that has diabetes.